Daisy.
Because I think most conservatives, they hold women at a certain level,
Mm-hmm.
and these women uh, become subservient to their men.
Hello, I think we are live.
That's the truck backing up that you hear. So we're going to do our theme song first. Our guest today is the fabulous Daryl Davis, and this
Yay!
song is about Daryl. It's Sunday Songwriter Spotlight with the Snarky Sisters. We're live at noon.
We're on time today.
Stop playing your ukulele right here on our Facebook page. With our friends, we will commune because we're communists.
Oh, yeah.
Featuring the amazing Daryl Davis and his fabulous stories and tunes.
Who won the election? Can the president please be gracious? Here we are in limbo. Can anybody save us? Well, maybe Daryl Davis, 'cause he's a rara Avis.
Wow. Thank you.
Diana, you got to tell people what rara Avis is.
Everyone knows it's a rare bird, like the one that's cheeping over there.
I just heard it say rawr.
I know. I know. It thinks it's a pirate. I had to drive my brother's parrot across the country from Seattle to D.C., and he hasn't gotten over the trip yet. So that's what you hear. She, right. Because if you've seen the show before, you know that you can't tell the difference between a male parrot and a female parrot, at least an African gray, until the day they lay an egg. And then you know that it's a girl. So this one's spirit is a girl. What?
But can the parrots tell the difference?
I'm
That's
not.
what's important.
I'm not sure. That's a good question. We'll have to look that one up.
I mean, I assume they get pregnant in the same way most other animals do.
That's not a question for me.
Okay.
I'm not a vet, and I don't know anything.
You're not a zoologist?
I don't
now,
know
Daryl
anything
Davis,
about that.
Wait, Daryl Davis, all the hats that you wear, zoology is not one of them.
I can't say that it is.
Okay, so
I've been around some wild animals, so I'll tell you that.
I'm going
the female variety.
I'm going to tell everyone who you are, because there might be one or two people who don't, and then Lisa's going to play our first song, and then we're going to get back to you with some interesting, deep, faceted questions.
Oh, goodness.
If you don't know Daryl Davis, what's wrong with you? I actually thought of that this morning. He's ubiquitous in the D.C. area and the rest of the world as an R&B, boogie-woogie, blues, and rock and roll musician, songwriter, author, band leader, and actor. He's traveled the world with Chuck Berry's, as well as some others, go-to man for tours and concerts. But he's also known for engaging with, befriending, and often changing the minds of Ku Klux Klan's members. Some call him the Klan Whisperer because he's gotten more than 200 Klansmen to give up their robes. Is that true?
That
and
is true.
I hear Daryl has a nice collection of robes now. For Daryl, knowledge can be a powerful persuader. Besides Chuck Berry, Daryl's performed with Jerry Lee Lewis, Muddy Waters, B.B. King, as well as the whole litany of seminal blues and rock and roll musicians. So now, Lisa, can you take it away and play our first song? It's I'm a Boogeyman.
Ooh.
Ooh.
I love this one. If this doesn't get your feet tapping, I don't know what will.
Ew.
We don't have audio on my part, on my end.
Same. Sing along. You know the words. And I've lost everything, so live television. Well, can you see me?
I see you. I
Okay,
see
good.
Lisa.
Okay.
Well, while we're waiting for Lisa, let's just start out and tell us. You told me the other day that you only started playing piano when you were a teenager. How did that happen?
Well, up until my late teens, I wanted to be either an espionage agent or a computer programmer. And this is in the '70s, and computers took up a whole house, a whole building, and James Bond was my hero. So each vocation was pulling at me with equal force in opposite directions, and I was immobilized. I couldn't do either, and I kept trying to figure out how can I be both a computer programmer and a spy.
Well,
And
what
that
what made you want to be a spy? Was it the Cold War? Was it the girls? Was it the cars?
I think everything 007. Those movies were out, and it appealed to me and all that kind of stuff. And so back then there was no way to do that, and of course today you can.
There it is.
Well, I boogied last night and the night before. When I woke up this morning, I want to boogie some more. I'm the boogie man. I'm the boogie man.
Lisa.
Then Lisa froze too.
Huh. Am I frozen?
No, you're not frozen.
Okay. Lisa, what's up with you? You need to get out your piano, Daryl.
Oh goodness.
Well, what
So
made you?
anyway,
Yeah, go
so
ahead.
back then, there was no way to combine the two, but today you can do it. It's called cyber espionage. But so in the interim, um, I thought about people that I admired. What am I going to do with my life? I thought about people that I admired, and two names came to mind: Elvis Presley and Chuck Berry. And what I admired about them was the fact that they had made millions upon millions of people happy all over the world with their music. So people that they would never meet. So I said, you know what? That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to become a musician and make people happy. That was my goal. And so, of course, I liked their music. And in order to emulate them, if you will, you have to listen to what they listen to. How did they become this genre called rock and roll? Well, you go back, before what were they listening to growing up? They were listening to blues, to country music, to boogie woogie, to big band swing, and all of that, was assimilated by Chuck Berry into rock and roll. And so that's where I decided to become a musician.
Do you remember the first time you heard rock and roll? Were you here or were you living abroad?
I was living abroad.
So what was the first record you heard?
I heard Elvis, of course. Now, back then in the '60s, here's the thing: the countries abroad were like about 5 years behind us, 3 to 5 years behind us. I was born in 1958, and so in other words, the music that I would hear overseas would be 5 years before. I went overseas in 1961, so I was hearing music from the '50s.
Mm-hmm.
Whereby my peers were hearing James Brown, the Supremes, Motown, the Beach Boys, all this kind of stuff. And so I was rooted in the '50s, and where if I was here, I would be rooted in the '60s as far as my introduction to music. And I remember, my parents bought me the first Beatles album. I still have it.
Uh-huh.
And I got their first album. I got their second album. The originals.
The Beatles.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As I heard them, I heard the Stones. I heard a lot of jazz because my parents were into jazz and things like that. But the music of Elvis and Chuck Berry, Chubby Checker, Little Richard, Jerry Lee Lewis, all of that appealed to me.
What was the first record you bought? You remember?
Heartbreak Hotel.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good.
And, later Johnny Be Good and all that kind of thing. So I have about maybe 5,000 45s and maybe almost 3,000 albums.
And do you listen
Tons
to
of
them?
CDs.
Do you listen to them still?
Once in a while when I transfer them into digital, and that's a lengthy process because you have to do it analog.
Yep. I've started listening back to records on a record player.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I still have my record players.
Good. That's good. So how did you learn to play? Did you start with the piano, and how'd you learn?
I started with the piano. I learned to play by ear. I was never in high school band because I didn't know how to play. But I had friends in concert band, marching band, jazz band, little rock and roll bands outside of school. And, when I expressed a desire to want to play, they would show me little things. And I'd go home and practice them relentlessly. And it was frustrating because, how do they do that? I couldn't do it, couldn't get it coordinated. But I just worked on it. I learned to play by ear, pick the needle up off the record, bring it back, drop it back down. And when I decided to major in music, which was in 11th grade, what am I going to do? I got one more year of high school. Of course, my parents were not happy about me, deciding to major in music, but I was determined. So I went out and I bought books, taught myself how to read the music, and I learned how to read. I had to audition. Surprisingly, I passed the auditions, and I was accepted to major in music. But I had bad habits, and so I had to relearn. My bad habits were I had the wrong fingering, wrong hand position, because I was self-taught. It's like if you teach yourself how to type, you do two-finger kind of thing. So that's how I played the piano like that. And so I had to learn the scales and all that kind of stuff, the fingering.
And theory? Did you have to become a master theory too?
Yes, and theory is no problem for me whatsoever.
Wow.
Theory is a breeze for me. I can take any kind of a book and read that book and just sponge the information. What was the issue was experience. You cannot get experience out of a book. Experience comes over time. The day you pass the bar doesn't make you a great lawyer. The day you get your driver's license does not make you a great driver. It's the time put in driving or being in the courtroom or litigating or whatever.
That's right.
Right. So I was up against, when I went to college, I went to Howard University. By the way, I'm not going to say vice president elect. I will say vice president.
Okay. You can.
She graduated from Howard.
That's right. She did.
Okay. But anyway, I was up against kids who had lessons, from day one, age 3, all the way to, they entering college. I never had that. And very fortunately for me, I was very, very fortunate that my classmates were more of a cooperative nature than a competitive nature. So they would see me screwing up and they would say, hey, Daryl, come on down to my practice room after class. Let me show you how I would approach that on the piano, how to read the grand staff, all that kind of stuff. So people were very, very helpful. And I graduated 4 years later. They didn't have to help me. They're concerned about their own careers, but that's how they were.
And then what did you do? What was your first band? What made you want to be a band leader instead of a non-band leader, sideman?
Well, I guess because I was looking at Elvis, I was looking at Chuck Berry, looking at Jerry Lee Lewis, all these people, and they had their own bands. And a lot of the band, and I like that 50s music. So, a lot of the bands ended in ELLS, the Shirelles, the Dovells, the Shondells, Tommy James, all these L's, right?
Or ETTES.
So, yeah, the females, right? So, the Fabulettes, right? So I formed Daryl and the Dayrells.
Wow, okay.
Yeah. And it was a good band. It was a really good band, but I learned a lesson. If you want to be in something full time, then you need to hire other musicians who can do it full time. And my problem was I hired weekend warriors. So I was getting all these gigs like in Ocean City and here and there. And people were like, man, it's Wednesday night. I can't go to Ocean City. I got to be at work at 7:30 in the morning on Thursday. So I got to reform the band. And so I just called it the Daryl Davis Band after that.
Great. Lisa,
but,
you're back.
I was a sideman, for a number of years.
Yeah.
During the time that I had my bands, and still, somebody needs me.
Yeah, you're a great sideman, by the way.
Thank you.
So are we ready to share another song?
Sure.
This time I'll get it right.
It's on my tail, I say, leave me alone. with nobody else. And every time I start dreaming, you're always on my mind. I leave all my other women, leave them all behind. If I could have you, I wouldn't want nobody else. But if I can't have you, darling, I'll just stay by myself.
Woohoo! Yeah. Awesome. Now, who are the other band members?
Okay, that is actually the Ted Jenkins Band that I was sitting in with. And Ted Jenkins on the bass guitar, Wes Crawford on the drums, Donnie Osher on the lead guitar, and we had an assortment of horn players there.
So we
That-
have a
that
bunch
Ted
of
had
people
assembled.
watching right now, Daryl. Let's see. Ken Roseman. Hey, hi there, Ken.
Hey, kid.
Adele Biantarelli. Hello there. Jackie Washington. Arlene J. Denise Swameling. Hello, folks.
Arlene, baby.
Oh, Seth. Seth Keibel asked Daryl to tell a story about CUYA.
That's a special greeting Seth has for me.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, he's probably having one right now, but yeah.
All right.
Is it a special drink? I made
No, I wouldn't call it a drink exactly.
I made a Daryl Davis cocktail. It's Kahlua and cream with some Cool Whip on top.
Is it virgin?
Because you are so cool. What?
Is it a virgin pina colada?
No, it's a Kahlua and cream.
Oh, Kahlua. Okay.
And I have a psychotronic cider. So it's
what?
vodka, cider, and rum.
And you call it a what? A what?
A psychotronic cider.
Psychotronic cider.
Ooh.
All right.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Cheers,
All
Daryl
right.
Davis.
All right. I'm mesmerized by you.
Woo.
So what have you been doing since March, Daryl?
I've been on lockdown pretty much. Very few gigs. I started a podcast, been interviewing a lot of interesting people. The brother of the Unabomber. Remember the Unabomber?
Sure.
Yeah, well, his
The
brother's-
brother who turned him in, right?
Yes, he's a very good friend of mine.
He is.
And yeah, I interviewed him, interviewed a lot of different former white supremacists, some psychologists, some musicians, some members of Little Richard's band. As you know, Little Richard just passed away back in May.
Yes.
Chuck Berry's son, different people, interesting people, and just telling them some stories, victims, parents of people who've been shot by the police and murdered by the police, and tell their story, get it out there. Just interesting people on the podcast, and doing a lot of interviews over Zoom and lectures over Zoom.
So we have a bunch of photos. I was wondering if you could sort of comment as they go through. Would you
Sure.
mind? Kind of showing the first part is your musical life. The second part is your, the books that you've written and the people that you've met kind of thing. So let me go ahead and share this. And Diana, did you have something else you wanted to say first? Oh, okay. Let's do this then.
I keep muting myself because the bird is having a telephone conversation with someone. I don't know who.
Okay. I performed along with Johnny Johnson. Johnny Johnson on the end there on the piano for Keith Richards in the middle. It was his 50th birthday party at the Metropole nightclub up in New York City. And Johnny was hired by Keith to come and play at his party. And Johnny brought me along. So so Keith plays a little, of course, he's a guitar player, but he plays a little bit of piano. He likes blues piano. So on this particular photo, we're playing six-handed piano.
Wow.
at his birthday party, which was attended by people like Eric Clapton and Phil Spector and all kinds of wild people. That right there is Jerry Lee Lewis, the killer. And that was taken at the Stardust nightclub in Waldorf, Maryland, many years ago. Fats Domino and the actor Danny DeVito.
Fats Domino was nice, wasn't he? Nice
Yes,
guy.
he was very, very nice. They all have been.
Yeah.
Little Richard Wayne Penniman.
Was he nice?
Very nice, very nice. The man who invented rock and roll. Without this guy, we wouldn't have Elvis Presley or the Beatles or the Rolling Stones or Led Zeppelin or Elton John. Anybody who plays rock music, all their DNA goes back to Chuck Berry. There we have Billy Joel and a later picture with Jerry Lee Lewis.
I had that in twice, sorry.
Okay.
Okay.
Ted Nugent. I was playing with the legendary Blues Band, which was Muddy Waters' old band, and Pinetop Perkins was the piano player, and he had left the band and had given me his position in the group, and we played out in Little Rock, Arkansas, and Ted Nugent came out to see us, and I invited him to sit in.
Wow.
Okay, there. That's a Klan rally.
That's a band member.
Yeah. Daryl Davis
kind of band.
And the Klan Band. It's called the Klan Band.
Yeah.
Daryl.
Anyway,
I love you.
so that's a Klan rally I went to. As you can see, I was a lot thinner with more hair on my head. That was about 28 years ago.
Wow.
And I'm still doing it.
Took some guts. Man.
That was in Maryland, by the way.
Oh, this is in Maryland.
See the burning cross getting ready to go out there in the
Yeah.
background.
Wow.
Some parts of Maryland are probably the most racist parts in the country. My dad used to tell me that.
Yeah, okay. That guy right there, he was a Grand Dragon in the Klan in Maryland. Let me tell you about him real quick. He went to prison for conspiring to bomb the synagogue up on Liberty Road in Baltimore. He served 4 years in prison for that.
Wow.
And he continued running the Klan, when he, from inside the jail through his vice dragon outside. And then when he was released, he took over the Klan, continued. And a couple of years later, he went back to prison for 3 years for assault with intent to murder 2 black men with a shotgun. And I met him, I wanted to meet him, and he was vehemently violent, racist, and anti-Semitic. And he went on to become one of my best friends. I owned that robe and hood that he's wearing right there, and a lot of other Klan stuff that he gave me. Now, you don't get paid being a Klan leader. It's a title like Boy Scout leader. You might get a small stipend out of the dues people pay, but it's not enough to pay your rent, your mortgage, or put food on your table.
Right.
So his day job, while he's trying to bomb a synagogue, he was a Baltimore City police officer. He was not an undercover officer in the Klan. He was a bona fide Klansman on the Baltimore City Police. And let me tell you something, there are others.
Yeah. So what's that banner behind him?
That banner says, kill them all, let God sort them out.
Oh my goodness.
That's inside his house.
Well, how did you become friends with him? I mean, when he
Well,
first saw you.
It was, it took a while.
Did you fool him into meeting you?
Did I fool? No. Well, I didn't. I wouldn't call it fooling somebody in. I just did not mention, that I was black, because I didn't want them to have any kind of preconceived notion.
Yeah.
And plus, if they knew that I was black before meeting them, in the interim, they could have prepared different answers for a black interviewer than they would have for a white interviewer. So I wanted it to be spontaneous, be candid. I was very upfront. If they asked, I told my secretary who booked these things for me, I gave her the numbers, call these people, tell them I want to interview them, but don't tell them that I'm black unless they ask. Wow. So of course, sometimes they would invite me over to their house, not knowing that I'm black. So I'm there knocking on their porch, knocking on the door, but he found out in advance when he was in prison, because I was writing him letters talking to set up an interview. He sent one of his Klan people out to check me out, and it got back to him. So he was all upset. How come you didn't tell me you were black? Blah, 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 blah.
Wow.
I said, what difference does it make? I said, if you're going to tell me your story and tell me the truth, is the truth going to vary whether you tell it to a white person asking you
Good
or a black
point.
person? Exactly. The truth is the truth. Opinions are one thing, but
Yeah.
facts are another, right? Facts.
Exactly.
So how
Okay.
did that go? How did the interview go? And then how did you
It went
friggin'
very
become
well.
friends
And
with him?
well, he was involved in this shooting, and at this bar over in Woodlawn, Maryland, and he wanted to meet there. After he was out of prison, he wanted to meet at the same bar. So I went up there, and I was I got there a little bit early, and I'm sitting on the bar stool. Everybody in the place is looking at me. It was not a bar that I belong in, obviously, and they all kept looking at me and then drinking or eating or whatever they were doing. And I had no idea what he looked like at the time. I knew who he was, but I had no idea what he looked like. And so I'm looking at everybody coming through the door. I don't know if he's already in there, looking at me or what. So I just sat at the bar stool watching everybody. And so this guy came to the door. Obviously, he spotted me immediately. I'm the only black person in the place. He signaled me, waved. I got up and walked over, shook his hand. We got a table, and this is just shortly after he got out of prison the second time, and this is where the shooting had taken place. And he and I are sitting down, and people are like looking at us like, what's going on here? Because they all knew him. He was the head of the Klan, and he's sitting at this table with this black guy, and they couldn't figure that out. And so some of them would come by and slap him on the back. Hey, Bob, good to see you again, man. Glad you're out. All that kind of stuff. These are fellow Klansmen and stuff. So he says, listen, let's get out of here because I'm going to keep getting interrupted. Let's go somewhere else where we can talk. I said, okay. So I was going to follow him in his car. I had my car. And he insisted that I ride with him. So I said, that's going to be a little tricky. But I said, all right, fine. I figured, hey, let's get this done. So I got in his car, and we went to a Chinese restaurant and closed the place down. We sat there for about 4 hours talking, and we kept getting together. And over time, his attitude began changing. He began seeing me for who I am. I would introduce him to other people who looked like me, some other Jewish people, things like that. So he would not think, oh, well, Daryl's the exception. It's all those other black people who are bad or whatever. I had to expand his mind just by example and exposure.
Wow.
And over time is what took it. And he finally, renounced, and I owned that robe and hood right there. And I also own his police uniform.
Wow.
And he came to my wedding.
Wow.
And what's he doing now?
He is deceased now.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear. So
okay, that's another grand dragon. Well, in that picture, he was the Grand Dragon of Maryland. His name is Roger Kelly, and he was the first one up. So you back it up for a second. There you go. Up.
I'm sorry.
Okay. He was also a Grand Dragon from Maryland, and he went on to become an Imperial Wizard. Grand Dragon means state leader. Anybody who is prefixed with the word grand means they are a state officer. A Grand Dragon would be like a governor. An Imperial Wizard is a national leader. Imperial, we would consider that a president.
Oh, okay.
All right, so he went on to become an Imperial Wizard later on, and I own his Imperial Wizard robe as well. He was the first person that I interviewed, named Roger Kelly. And
Wow.
he helped me out a great deal with my first book, Clandestine Relationships.
Wow. Okay.
Now, did you convince them to give it up? And
I don't want to say that I converted or convinced anybody. What I say is I was the impetus for them to convert themselves.
Right.
I gave them food for thought. I planted the seed. Because, when you try to compel somebody to do something, even if you get them to do it, it's not as long lasting as if they come to the idea themselves and say, I need to change this in my life to better my own life. So I give them the food for thought. The first, rally that you saw with the Burning Cross, that was in Maryland. This was about, I think, 4 years ago in Missouri. And this is towards the end of a rally.
This is just amazing. This photo is just mind-boggling.
So there's about, 20 some years difference between the first photo of the rally and this one here. Obviously, I'm a little bit bigger and less hair on my head.
Wow. Incredible photo.
So let's see the next photo here.
Yeah, it's move on here. Sorry.
Right.
This one's sort of long. There we go.
There you go. So this is what I do at those things. I talk to the people. Yeah, I have conversations. Some will talk to me, some will not talk to me. I've been involved in violence as well. I mean, that's to be expected. Sometimes it happens. You don't want it to happen, and it's certainly not a first resort, but if somebody attacks you, sometimes you have to defend yourself. The guy you see right there with the green cross on his mask is attached to the hood. When I came on that rally ground, he threatened me. Today, for the last, I would say 3 years, he sends me Christmas presents every year. And when I go out to Missouri, I visit with him.
So how did he threaten you when you first approached him?
When I first arrived there and I said hello to him, I called him by his title because I recognize, I can tell what somebody is by the robes and the markings on the robes. He said, "You don't want to meet me in a dark alley."
Oh, wow.
I said, "Well, I'm meeting you right here, right now." Okay, that's the Imperial Wizard of that particular clan group. He had the largest clan group in the country, Frank Ancona, Ancona, and he was murdered 3 years ago.
Oh dear.
Yeah, and he was on his way. He and I had become really, really good friends, and he was on his way out of the clan. I would say probably within a year of when that photo was taken, he would have been out. Today, I own that robe that he's wearing right there, that purple Imperial Wizard robe. He like I said, he had the largest clan group in the country, and when you peddle in hate, it will come back and bite you in the butt.
Yeah.
And he was, like I said, he was murdered. You would think it would be a black person who did it, or a Jewish person who did it, or a rival Klansman, but no, it was a Klanswoman. It was his wife.
Oh.
His wife murdered him, and you can look him up. Just Google Frank Ancona, KKK. I knew his wife, the Klanswoman. I know his kids. I know his dog. I've been in his home many times out there in Missouri, and he was thinking about divorcing her, and she poisoned his food, drugged him, and when he fell asleep, took a shotgun and blew his head off in the bed.
Awful. So with all like the first part of the show, unfortunately, before my computer actually crashed on me. Sorry about that, guys. It literally crashed. The first half of the show, we were going to, I'm a boogeyman, and that song, Leave Me Alone. The song's about love, and you have so much love in your lyrics, they're funny. But then the other part of our show talks, about your work.
Well, how can I sit here looking at you and not be in love?
Oh, I'm blushing. but seriously, it's like the work that you're doing, reaching out to Klansmen, Nazis, that's dealing with hate, with abject hate, and I'm sure you're the recipient. You put yourself right there, standing next to not just one, but a bunch of folks who probably hate you in that moment. How do you deal with that?
Okay, yes, you're right. But, there are people who talk the talk. I prefer to walk the walk. Our country can only become one of two things. One, it can become that which we sit back and watch it become, or it can become two, that which we stand up and make it become. So all of us as Americans, if we're concerned about our society, we have to ask ourselves the question, do I want to sit back and see what my country becomes, or do I want to stand up and make it become what I want to see? So I've chosen the latter. And sometimes, you have to put yourself out there. As I said, I've been very fortunate. I've been doing this now. In 2021, it'll be 37 years. And I've had a few fights. I put people in the hospital. I put people in jail. But fortunately, those are few and far between. But they are out there. And, you can be the recipient of that.
So I don't think you guys got to. I don't think our folks got to see the "I'm a Boogeyman" song, right?
Right.
Yeah,
And let me tell you about the, if you're going
we
to show it
saw
again. We saw like a little fraction of it. Do you still have it there?
I do. Because my computer crashed, and I was wondering if I can go ahead and show it now, or what do you think, Diana?
Sure.
Okay, and let me tell you who's in the band there. We have Mark Neary on guitar, Kim Martin on the drums, Bob Abbott on bass, and a young Seth Kuya Kaibo on tenor saxophone.
You man.
Well, I boogied last night and the night before. When I woke up this morning, I want to boogie some more. I'm the boogie man. I'm the boogie woogie man. Boogie, woogie, woogie, boogie, boogie as much as I can. You know I boogie with Sally and her sister Sue. Mama walked in with the boogie woogie too. I'm the boogie man. I'm the boogie woogie man. Boogie, woogie, woogie, boogie, boogie as much as I can. Well, the papa found out and was gonna take my life. I boogied with his daughters and I boogied with his wife. I'm the boogie man. I'm the boogie woogie man. I boogie, woogie, woogie, boogie, boogie as much as I can. I can boogie with 1, 2, 3, or 4, and keep on boogieing till my woogie gets sore. I'm the boogie man. I'm the boogie woogie man. I boogie, boogie, woogie, boogie, boogie as much as I can. Well, when I start to boogie, holler, please don't stop. I keep on boogieing till you blow my top. I'm the boogie man. I'm the boogie woogie man. Boogie, woogie, woogie, boogie, boogie as much as I can. If you're looking for some fun, something to do, step around the corner, let me boogie with you. I'm the boogie man. Yeah, the boogie woogie man. I boogie, woogie, woogie, boogie, boogie as much as I can. I'm the boogie man. I'm the boogie man. Woo, boogie woogie man. In my boogie woogie band. I boogie woogie woogie boogie boogie as much as I can. Bye bye.
You man.
Yay!
Is it your woogie that gets sore? Can you
you
talk
want to
about
find out?
that? I'm not going to say what I'm thinking. We have some shout outs to you. Rob Howe and Melinda Root is watching you. Tommy Wright says, Lord's work, Daryl. Denise says, we heard you perform at Night of 100 Elvises.
Oh, yeah.
That was
Bill
with
Starks.
you
Yeah.
ladies.
Yeah, we love that. Oh, I hope they have it this year. They won't, I know.
No, they won't.
Bill Stark says a big howdy. Jeff Jones.
Bill Starks is one of my favorite pianists. Let me tell you
Yep.
what, number one right there.
And he taught himself how to play too. And he has one of those roll-out piano keyboards. Do you have one of those?
I do have one of those.
You
This is
do?
probably better than mine, though. I got one of the original ones.
Wow, I bet his is kind of original too. It looks, I don't know. How can you play on that thing?
It is a little tricky. It's more for, I guess, maybe as a learning tool.
Yeah.
You know, if you want to work out some songs or something like that. You
But
know,
still,
put in your
yeah.
suitcase, when you're on the road, in the
It's
hotel
good.
room.
It's good. It's a Jeff Jones says, Daryl, you sure know how to plant seeds bravely. Those photos are mind-boggling. Arlene J. It takes remarkable courage to do this. Bonnie Crystal Adler, just wow. Ken Roseman, Seth, I didn't know you did stuff like this. Great band. Of course Seth does. Lonnie Moffat, this is so awesome. I sure miss dancing. Lots more. So everyone who's watching, share. Press share at the bottom of your screen. And more people come see this the next couple of days. What else have you got, Lisa? That one worked.
We have Daryl's Boogie Woogie. You want
There's
to
a
tell us
theme.
about?
What
There's
is that?
a theme going on here. What is it? Woogies? Woogies. Sore woogies.
Can you tell us about Daryl's Boogie Woogie?
Is that a solo performance or is that with the band?
I was with a band.
I'm not sure which one that is.
Okay.
But sounds like a boogie woogie to me.
I
Let's
think
watch
you
it
can-
and see at the other
Yeah.
side.
Okay.
Here we go.
Solo.
Oh, but I think there's a band.
There is a smile at the end. So, do you miss it playing with big bands at the
Listen,
big dances?
I would much rather be on stage playing with people like you and looking out on the dance floor and see people dance than going to some rally with people in robes and hoods marching around a burning cross and proclaiming white power and anti-Semitism and all kinds of other stuff. But that work is also very necessary.
It's
And
really necessary. And one question I have, because I'm the pessimist of the group, I guess. Do you see the activity, clans like Nazi, skinhead, Proud Boy activity? Do you see it increasing? I mean, look what we saw yesterday. Or do you see it diminishing, or is it plateauing? What do you see? You're out there.
okay, it's I tell you what, we are in the best time of our lives right now. I know it's kind of hard to fathom that, but like I said, I've been doing this for 37 years. It is a bittersweet time, but we are in the best time of our lives right now because we're turning a page. We're turning another page in our history, and we're turning it towards progress. We've come a long ways, but we still have a long ways to go. And why do I say it's the best time? Because people are now addressing what they should have been addressing decades ago. This problem that we have, the biggest problem we have in this country, if people want to say the economy, the coronavirus, blah, blah, blah. No. Yes, those are problems, but no, it's not the biggest. The biggest problem in this country is racism. I have been here for 401 years as a descendant of slaves. Slaves first came here in 1619. That's 401 years ago. And racism has been here that long and is still here. So that is the biggest disease plaguing this country. And like I said, it should have been addressed many, many years ago. Things have gotten better, but we still have a long ways to go. And as a result of I would say, the current climate, if you will, these things are being stirred up. And now people are being forced to address them when before it was considered taboo. They didn't want to talk about racism, put it under the carpet, lock it in the closet, deny it, turn a blind eye to it, all that kind of stuff. We are confronting a lot of problems in this country. Abuse of women, for example, as a result of the current climate, women now have the Me Too movement. People are forming more groups to address racism, and that's a good thing. Let's not delay it any longer. So, and if you look at the marches from the beginning of the civil rights movement, let's take Rosa Parks as a jumping off point in 1955 with the bus boycott, and through the 60s with Dr. Martin Luther King. We've always had white people involved in our marches. It's predominantly, a sea of black people with, a few white people sprinkled in. And things were moving very slowly. But today, look at the protests and the marches. You're seeing a sea of black people with a sea of white people mixed in. So it's a collective voice. And that collective voice is what's changing our country a lot more rapidly. In the wake of the George Floyd lynching, all these protests were geared towards the police. But yet there's been a larger ripple effect that we've never seen before. NASCAR banning the Confederate flag. The state of Mississippi, of all places, removing the Confederate flag, rebel flag, out of their main body flag. Aunt Jemima, Uncle Ben food, changing, rebranding, legislation to remove Confederate statues, and these kinds of things. That's all the ripple effect. And what's the difference in the protests? Because the powers that be are, when they were seeing the protests from the 60s and stuff, they were like this. They didn't want to hear anything we had to say, just shut us down. But now they're seeing more and more people who look like them. So they're pulling out their earplugs or else putting in their hearing aids, and they're listening. And so things are beginning to change a lot more rapidly. We still have a lot more change to go.
So Daryl, was his name Jeff Scoop, the neo-Nazi?
Yes, Jeff Scoop is a very dear friend of mine, very good friend of mine. I met him 4 years ago. I interviewed him. He was the head of the largest neo-Nazi organization in this country, the NSM, National Socialist Movement. He was a 27-year member and a 25-year commander. He led that organization for 25 years. And when I first met him, we were on opposite sides of the fence, of course. And today, he's a very close friend. He comes out with me to my lectures and, talks about why he renounced neo-Nazism. And he's bringing people together. He's pulling people out of that organization and helping young people, preventing them from joining. He's doing wonderful, wonderful work.
He was the one, I think, on that mini documentary that we showed. Well, actually, we put on our site. I don't know if you know, we posted it there for
Okay.
people to see. But he said that it was the idea of you being a little, what, you're a 10-year-old Cub Scout with
Right.
stones being thrown at you.
Yeah.
And I think he internalized that, and it was like, what if I had a 10-year-old kid and they were throwing stones at my kid? How would I feel?
Well,
But I think it was him.
Yes,
Tell that-
that
tell-
was Jeff who said that.
Tell us that story.
Well, okay. Well, it was another lady, a filmmaker named Dia Khan, one of the greatest filmmakers, documentarians ever. Very wonderful lady, very astute in what she does. And she also interviewed Jeff. She's a Muslim woman. And, he hated Muslims. And he sat there in the room with her, and she's like, how can you hate me? You're sitting there, we're having this conversation. It was the same thing with me. And, he began to internalize all this. And that had a profound effect on him for his reason to renounce Nazism. The 10-year-old story, 10-year-old scout story. Well, my parents were in the U.S. Foreign Service. So I spent a lot of time overseas, starting in 1961 at the age of 3. You're assigned to a country for 2 years, come back home for a little while, and then you get reassigned to another country for 2 years, back and forth, back and forth. I grew up as an American embassy brat. Now, overseas, my classrooms were filled with kids from all over the world: Nigeria, France, Germany, Russia, Japan, you name it. Anybody who had an embassy in those countries, all of their children, we all were in the same class together. That was my first exposure to school, with around all these different people. So that was my norm. That was my norm. And when I would come back home here to the States, I would either be in all Black schools or Black and white schools, meaning the still segregated or the newly integrated. And there would not be the amount of diversity in my classroom here that I had overseas. It would either be just Black and white kids. We're not a whole lot of Hispanics or Asians or whatever else. So I was around. I went from, normally we go from Black and white TV to color TV, right? Well, coming home from overseas, I was going from color to Black and white. It's like a reverse. So I had gotten along with everybody. So I didn't understand segregation, all that kind of stuff. So one time I came home at the age of 10, 1968. I was in 4th grade, and I was in school. I was one of 2 Black kids, a little Black girl in 2nd grade. So, I didn't really see a lot of her. Of course, I'm a big, bad 4th grader, so I don't associate with 2nd graders. So all of my friends were 4th and 5th graders. Consequently, they were all white. And several of the guys in my class were members of the Cub Scouts, and they invited me to join. So I joined. I was the only Black Scout in the area. And this was in Belmont, Massachusetts, which is a suburb of Boston. And so we had a parade with the Girl Scouts, Brownies, Cub Scouts, Boy Scouts, 4-H Club, other organizations, to march from Lexington, Mass, to Concord, Mass, to commemorate the ride of Paul Revere. And I was the only scout in this whole parade, and my dead mother let me carry the American flag. So I'm marching with my fellow scouts. The streets are blocked off, sidewalks are lined with nothing but white people, and they're all cheering us and waving and yelling, the British are coming, and all that kind of thing. We got to one point in this parade route, and all of a sudden I'm getting hit with bottles and soda pop cans and rocks, and just by a small group of spectators off to my right that were mixed in with the larger crowd. And I remember looking, and I remember there being a couple of kids, maybe a year or 2 older than me, so maybe 11 or 12, and a couple of adults who were with them throwing things. And being naive and having come from the background from which I came, I just assumed that these people over here did not like the Scouts. I didn't realize I was the only Scout getting hit until my den mother, my Cub master, my troop leader, all came rushing over and huddled over me and escorted me out of the danger. And so I'm like, why are they hitting me? I didn't do anything. I didn't say anything to them. Why are they hitting me? And all they would do is shush me and rush me along, telling me everything would be okay. And so at the end of the march, when I went home, my mom and dad were putting Band-Aids on me and getting me all cleaned up and asking me, how did you trip and fall down and get all scraped up? And I said, I didn't fall down. I told them what happened. And for the first time in my life, my mom and dad sat me down and explained to me what racism was. Now, believe it or not, at the age of 10, I had never heard the word racism. I had, not that I'm stupid, but I had no reason to know anything about it. I was in utopia being around everybody, in my background. And, a lot of people have older brothers and sisters, that pass things down. You learn from them. I'm an only child. My parents got it right the first time. So I didn't have that benefit of having hand-me-downs and experiences and all that kind of thing from older siblings. So when they were telling me this, I was incredulous because my 10-year-old brain could not process the idea that someone who had never seen me before, someone who had never spoken to me, someone who knew absolutely nothing about me would want to inflict pain upon me for no other reason than this, the color of my skin. It made no sense. For the first time in my life, I thought my parents were lying to me. I did not believe them. And because the people who were doing this to me did not look any different to me than my friends overseas, whether they were my little German friends or my French friends or my fellow Americans, and certainly my people right there in Belmont, Massachusetts, my classmates. They never did this to me. So it has nothing to do with color, And my parents were like, not everybody is like that, but there's a certain people. I didn't believe them. Well, about between a month and a half, 2 months later, after this incident, same year, on April the 4th, 1968, Martin Luther King was assassinated. And those of us who are old enough, we remember that. And every major city in this country burned to the ground, including nearby Boston, my hometown, Chicago, right here where we are now, Washington, D.C., all in the name of this new word that I had learned, racism. So now I understood that the thing does exist, but I was curious as to why. Why do people hate each other because of skin color? So I formed a question in my mind, which was, how can you hate me when you don't even know me? And I've been looking for the answer for 52 years now. So as a teenager and on through adulthood, I bought every book I could find on Black supremacy, white supremacy, the Ku Klux Klan, anti-Semitism, the Nazis in Germany, the neo-Nazis over here. And I've read them all. I have a vast library on the stuff. My books all talked about it, but they didn't tell me why. So who better to go to ask that question of, how can you hate me when you don't even know me, than go to someone who would go so far as to join an organization that practices hating people and has done so for over 100 years, 155 years right now. People hating people who don't look like them and who don't believe as they believe. So that's why I was seeking out the Ku Klux Klan.
So you're still searching for the answer to why, but what do you suspect is the why?
Ignorance and lack of exposure. All right. When I perform all over the world now and all over this country. I performed in 49 of the 50 states. I performed in about 15 to 17 different countries. All right. Between my childhood travels around the world with my parents and my adult travels, when you combine them, I have been in a total of 57 different countries on 6 continents. And I can tell you something, no matter how far I've gone from right here, whether it's right next door to Canada or Mexico or halfway around the world, no matter how many different kinds of people I see who look different than me, who maybe speak a different language than I do, or worship differently or practice differently, when I come home, I conclude one thing. We all are human beings. And as human beings, we all want basically the same 5 core things. We want to be loved. We want to be respected. We want to be heard. We want to be treated fairly. We want the same things for our family as anybody else wants for their family. And if we keep those things in mind when we deal with different people, whether they're white supremacists, whether they're whatever, different people, different religions, whatever, keep those same things in mind. You can navigate that society a lot smoother. One of my favorite quotes of all time is called the travel quote. and it's by Mark Twain. And Mark Twain said, "Travel is fatal to prejudice, bigotry, and narrow-mindedness, and many of our people need it sorely on these accounts. Broad, wholesome, charitable views of men and things cannot be acquired by vegetating in one little corner of the earth all one's lifetime." And that is so true. Perhaps had I not had all that travel, would I be doing this today? Maybe not, maybe not. But that exposure is what's, giving me the tools needed. It does not make me a better person than anyone else. I don't think that. It just simply gives me a broader perspective on how to deal with different kinds of people, even different kinds of people right here in my own country.
So you have broad perspectives philosophically in many ways, but you also have broad interests. Diane and I were surprised to find out you have other interests. We knew that you were doing the work that you do, the outreach work that you do. Of course, we know you're a fabulous musician, band leader, but we didn't know about a couple of other things that you do.
Uh-oh, is this for family or what?
Whoa.
Well, one thing you told us when you were younger, there were a couple of things that you thought you might want to do.
We brushed by that while your computer
While you were crashing.
The computer programmer and
that might lead into a song that I wrote called "Broad-Minded."
Oh yeah, we can play that.
Yeah.
It's a little play on words, folks.
We also want you to tell everyone about your second book that's coming out this year.
Sure, be glad to.
Yeah. Why don't you tell us now while Lisa's queuing it up?
Okay. The first book is called Clandestine Relationships, and clandestine is spelled with a K, not a C. And that book came out in 1997, beginning of 98. And so a lot of things have transpired since then. We've had a black president. We've had more immigration. Well,
I went to school and earned a college degree. I've been around the world to see what I can see. Come to find out that I only like one thing, to have lots of women and never buy a ring. 'Cause I'm broad-minded. I got broads on my mind. I just think about women, think about them all the time.
He's broad-minded.
They can be a redhead, a blonde, a brunette, half black hair or no hair, with a wig or a net. I like them petite and I also like them tall. A worldly guy like me takes them any size at all. 'Cause I'm broad-minded. I got broads on my mind. Any kind of girl will do me just fine. I'm broad-minded. Yeah, I'm broad-minded. I'm so broad-minded. I got a one-track mind.
Broad-minded. He's broad-minded.
Now if you're worried about your looks but you wanna have a ball, I ain't narrow-minded, just give me a call. I'll take any lady from 18 to 81. What does age matter when we're having fun? You know I'm broad-minded. I got broads on my mind. I wanna make love with 2 or 3 at a time. I'm broad-minded. Yeah, I'm broad-minded. I'm so broad-minded. I got a one-track mind.
Broad-minded. He's broad-minded.
I'm broad-minded. Ooh, broad-minded. Yeah, I'm so broad-minded. I got a one-track mind. I'm so broad-minded. I got a one-track mind. Yeah, I'm so broad-minded. I got a one-track mind.
I wrote that back in 1988.
Yeah, I don't know if anybody. I wonder if younger people even know what a
Broad
broad
means,
is.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, that was probably pretty popular back in the 40s, right? That term
yeah,
for
yeah,
women.
yep.
Yeah. But on that was Martin Corletta on bass, Ron Holloway on saxophone.
The best.
Oh yeah, and Joe Dicey on I'm sorry, Joe Dyson, two of them, Joe Dyson on guitar, as well as Bob Margolin on guitar,
Hmm.
Ray Tilkins on guitar, and I put a couple guitar licks in there, and of course myself on piano, um, and Martin Collette on bass, Adolph Wright on the drums.
Fabulous. Yeah, miss playing with other people, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
So Diane, I cut him off in the middle of talking about the book. So
right. The
please
Oh yeah.
book. Yes,
tell us
So
about
please.
your book.
okay, so like I said, the first one, Clandestine Relationships, came out at the end of '97, beginning of '98, and so since that time, a lot has transpired. We've had a black president, we've had more immigration, we have Donald Trump, and a lot of these things have fueled racism, and so a lot of things,
Yeah.
need to be talked about. So the second book, which I just finished writing during lockdown, during this coronavirus, because I wasn't out there playing, I had plenty of time on my hands. I started it a while back, but now I was able to put everything in place, and it's called The Clan Whisperer. So already it's been sent off, and it should be out in 2021.
Oh,
That sounds
congratulations.
great. You should do a TV show too, like the Dog Whisperer.
I'm doing one right now with you ladies.
Definitely.
Is that
we
what this is?
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
absolutely. Absolutely. I love it.
Yeah, this has been great.
Really, this has been so much fun, Daryl. So, when the computer crashed, did you talk about the secret agent thing too?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Oh,
I still couldn't figure out IT. Yes, because you could back then. You saw the future coming, Daryl. You knew that UNIVAC was taking up 3 buildings in North Georgetown, and
Yeah.
soon the computer chip would be a nano chip on the back of a bee somewhere.
When I was a kid, I used to get Popular Science magazine. Remember that magazine?
Sure.
Popular Mechanics and Popular
Sure.
Science.
Yeah.
So I would get Popular Science and stuff, and I'd read it cover to cover as a child. And I was fascinated by gadgetry, and computers, really piqued my interest. And of course, back then they were bigger than a building, seriously. And I never dreamed, they would become this small as a cell phone. And they probably will become smaller, I'm sure. But I knew there was money to be made. I knew that the computers were the wave of the future. So I wanted to become a computer programmer. But at the same time, my hero was James Bond. And so I wanted to be an espionage agent. And believe it or not, to this day, I still have my 007 briefcase where you push the handle and it fires plastic bullets. I got my James Bond decoder belt. It's probably worth a lot of money these days, but I still got the original.
Have you ever gone to the CIA? They have a museum off of the lobby of all that kind of the lipstick cameras and the
I went to the-
X-ray specs.
I didn't go to that one. I went to the Spy Museum when it was around.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
What's that movie? Tinker Tailor, Soldier Spy.
Yeah,
It could
look
be
correct.
pianist, guitarist, um, author, spy. How's
We're
that?
writing that book right
well, no,
now.
I haven't done any spying, but but back then you could not combine the two. Today you can. It's called cyber espionage.
That's
So
right.
because I couldn't make up my mind which one I was going to be, because each one was pulling at me with equal force, I thought about people that I admired, and Elvis Presley and Chuck Berry came to mind. And what I admired was that they had made millions of people happy all over the world with their music. So I said, that's it. That's what I want to do. I'm going to be a musician. Despite the fact that I couldn't play at the time, I was determined that's what I was going to do, make people happy. So, when you guys, see me play, and you all know this, you're musicians, the public, they see the finished product. Unless we're prodigies who just, sit down and do anything at any given time on any instrument. And I've met prodigies. I went to school with prodigies, when I was majoring in music. But they're rarities. The vast majority of us have to work at it. So our audience sees the finished product, but they don't see all the years and hours we put into practicing to get it to that point.
Well, this has been so much fun, Daryl. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for having me. I really, really appreciate it.
Will you come
And-
back? Will you come back?
Absolutely.
Okay, good.
And hopefully one day we can do it in person.
I think we should all take a trip somewhere. Greece or Turkey or,
I'm
Thailand.
down with that.
I've
Yeah.
been to Greece and Turkey. I've not
Yeah.
been to Thailand yet, but I'd like to go. Let's do it.
Okay, ready to go.
Well, I think a good song to exit on is a song about love. What do you think, Daryl?
Let's go make it.
Let's go make it. How's that? That's a good one for us.
Let's go make love.
Let's go
That's the name of the song.
That is the name of the song. So
It's one I wrote that song in I think 2000, 2002.
All right. All right.
When I walked into the bar, I didn't know who you are. With you gave me a smile, so I thought I would stay a while. But when you gave me a wink, it was time to finish my drink. Let's get on out of here and let's go make love. Or will it be your place or mine? Any place will be just fine. I don't even know your name. Oh, but I'm willing to play your game. You didn't have to say a word. Your thoughts were all I heard. Let's get on out of here. Let's go make love. Now after we make love tonight, are you gonna hold me tight? Or will it be a one-night stand? Just a wham, bam, thank you, man. Are you gonna be my friend? Is this the beginning or is it the end? Or will it all just depend after we make love? After we make love tonight, are you gonna hold me tight? Or will it be a one-night stand? Just a thank you, man. Will I ever see you again? Or be forgotten like windblown sand? Am I gonna be your man after we make? Am I gonna be your man after we make? Yeah, baby. Am I gonna be your man after we make love?
All right, so that was Adolph Wright on the drums. Seth Keibel did the Seth Kuya Keibel did the
Kuya.
yeah Kuya. Seth Kuya Keibel did the horn arrangements, and Dale Pusher. Dale Pusher used to play saxophone for Elvis Presley. That was him on the tenor sax. Eduardo Garcia on the bass, and Johnny Sakanikas on the drums, and myself on the piano and the vocals.
Wow, that was fun. Great song.
And I won't tell you who the female was doing all the oohing and ahhing. I'll leave that
Oh,
mystery.
okay.
Is it somebody we know?
Quite possibly.
Okay, well, we're going to go off live, but stay on and then you can tell us.
Okay.
So, folks, thanks so much for tuning in. We're going to go off live right now.
Thank
Thanks
you
so
all.
much with the Snarky Sisters with Daryl Davis.
Woo! Thank you. Wee.
Bye-bye.
Bye.